From Ticker News with Aaron Young, this is Ticker Today.
Hello, thanks so much for joining me. The US and China have now reached a deal to roll back higher tariffs on each other's products, signalling a move from tensions to collaboration. Following 2 days of talks in Geneva, President Trump now agreeing to cut tariffs on Chinese imports from 125% down to 10%. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has now stated his government will respond with force to terrorist bases across Pakistan, calling it the new normal in regional policy. The Trump administration negotiating with Qatar over potentially converting a luxury Qatari jet into the next Air Force One, raising a whole lot of questions. In a sweeping cabinet shake-up, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese unveiling new appointments for portfolios, including workplace relations, the environment, communications and social services. And the markets now, US markets surging after Washington and Beijing agreed to a partial tariff rollback, temporarily easing investor concerns about that looming recession. You are watching Ticker Today, the latest news and business moving the world. Let's get started. All right, but first today, the US and China are agreeing to reduce steep tariffs on each other's goods, marking a shift from conflict to now cooperation. After 2 days of intense discussions in Geneva, President Trump's tariffs on China will decrease from 125% down to 10%. However, a separate 20% tariff related to China's involvement in the fentanyl trade will remain in place. Meanwhile, China will lower retaliatory tariffs on US products to 10% as well. The agreement sparking a rally on Wall Street overnight, with the Nasdaq soaring over 4%, the Dow recovering from recent downturns. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announcing the agreement in Geneva.
We had very productive talks, and I believe that the venue here in Lake Geneva added great equanimity to what was a very positive process. We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%.
And President Trump, speaking from the Roosevelt Room this morning, says the tariffs were actually hurting China.
After productive talks in Geneva, both sides now agreed to reduce the tariffs imposed after April 2nd to 10% for 90 days as negotiators continue on the largest structural issues. And I want to tell you that a couple of things. First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that. The talks in Geneva were very friendly. The relationship is very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has declared that his government will not shy away from using force against terrorist camps in Pakistan, defining the approach as the new normal in bilateral relations. Speaking publicly for the first time since recent strikes on suspected terrorist sites, Modi promised a rigorous trade and stance in the fight against terrorism following tragic attacks that claimed 26 civilian lives in Jammu and also Kashmir. Tensions have escalated between the two nations now, with India conducting military operations in response to what it terms Pakistani terrorism. Modi reaffirmed that any discussions with Pakistan will focus solely on terrorism and the disputed region of Kashmir. And the Trump administration is in discussions with Qatar regarding the potential use of a luxury Qatari plane as the new Air Force One. This is the aircraft owned by the Qatari royal family. It would be retrofitted for presidential use and is being considered as a gift to be used while Trump is in office, potentially for his presidential library later on as well. Now, legal experts are reviewing the arrangement amidst concerns about foreign influence, while Trump has expressed frustration over ongoing delays in the delivery of the new Air Force One jets due from Boeing, heavily delayed. Democrats have criticised the deal, highlighting possible conflicts with US law regarding gifts from foreign entities. Trump expected to visit Qatar this week, and here's what he has said so far about the plane.
I think Qatar, who has really, we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said, we would like to do something. And if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it.
In Australian politics and a major cabinet reshuffle, the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announcing new ministers for workplace relations, environment, communications and social services. It follows recent factional deals that promoted Anne Ali and also Tim Ayres to federal cabinet positions, with Ali making history as the first Muslim woman in such a role. Ayres will oversee industry and innovation. Tanya Plibersek moves to social services after previous departmental scandals. Murray Watt is appointed as the new Environment and Water Minister, aiming to reignite discussions with the Greens on environmental legislation. Meanwhile, Annika Wells takes on communications and sport. Amanda Rishworth stepping into employment as the newly restructured ministry prepares for its swearing-in ceremony today. The massive power outage that plunged Spain, Portugal and the south of France into darkness has sparked intense debate across Europe over the role of renewables. The blackout, one of the worst in European history, left millions without essential services for several hours on April 28. Spanish authorities now investigating the cause, including the possibility of a cyber attack, while critics point fingers at the reliance on wind and solar power. Meanwhile, energy leaders are calling for calm and caution against premature conclusions before the investigation concludes. The markets in US stocks made a remarkable comeback following a major agreement between the US and China to temporarily reduce tariffs, easing those recession fears. Here's how things are looking. The Dow surging by over 1,100 points. The S&P 500 enjoying a substantial 3% jump, bringing its losses for the year down to just under 1%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite soared by 4%, driven by positive news for major companies like Tesla and also Apple. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent describing the weekend negotiations as productive, both nations agreeing to lower tariffs to 30% for US goods, 10% for Chinese imports. The development has now reignited market enthusiasm, sending shares of companies reliant on Chinese trade soaring.